President Buhari engages APC governance, reassures rebuilding strong political institutions through non-interference in elections.
I've started serializing the performances of the last quarter of ministries.
Presidential delivery tracker and website unveiled for monitoring government projects.
Nigeria Civil Aviation sends stern warning to airlines operators to settle debts or risk suspension of licenses.
Well, good morning, Nigeria. Today we have two topics. The first is part 2 of the extension of ASUU strike and mainstreaming African traditional medicine in universal health coverage.
The Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, is synonymous with industrial actions, and this has over the years become a ritual with the nation's public ivory towers.
Well, the ASUU leadership and representatives of the federal government have been meeting to resolve the issues in dispute following the industrial action, the latest, of course, embarked upon by ASUU, and this was over 6 months ago, all certainly to no avail.
Now, the recent development following an announcement of a comprehensive, total and indefinite stance of ASUU leadership over the strike action is generating conversations. And on Good Morning Nigeria last Tuesday, guests gave their thoughts to the extension of the strike action.
Well, we had guests yesterday with us, which was Tuesday, to discuss the issues, and they included Comrade Issa Aremu, who is Director General of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies. And we also had Professor Abdullahi Sule Kano, who is a former president of ASUU.
We had Chief Sylvester Onoja, former Commissioner for Education, former Chairman, Teaching Service Commission, Kogi State, and former Principal, King's College, Lagos, as well as Dr. Niyi Sumonu, National Coordinator, Congress of University Academics.
Well, the guests presented different views, which of course bordered on how to resolve the crisis. But amongst the issues raised were those of the crisis of collective bargaining, the decay in the education sector, as well as the need for government to improve feedback mechanism for continuous engagements. But also the requirement of ASUU to know that it could not possibly win its war in one single approach.
Today, we continue with the second part of the extension of ASUU strike, where we shall highlight funding alternatives for universities and the role of the institution's governing boards, among other issues. I am Kirian Umayo, welcoming you to this Wednesday's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I joined my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program. Today is the last day in the month of August, August the 31st. And incidentally, it is the African Traditional Medicine Day. And so we shall be taking a look at how to mainstream African traditional medicine in seeking to achieve universal health coverage. That will be our second topic. And as I said, we're having two topics. The first one being part 2 of the extension of the ASUU strike. In the course of the program, we have our regular complementary segments, and these will include newspaper review and business. As always, we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. For now, here is Comfort Amodu, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kingsley and Kirian. And here's the news. President Muhammadu Buhari is reassuring Nigerians that governing All Progressives Congress will continue to bequeath strong political institutions that reflect their choices through non-interference in elections, receiving members of the Progressives governors for the president, citing the outcome of the Ekiti, Anambra and Osun governorship polls as clear indications. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo received a delegation of the All Progressives Congress governors who are on a felicitation visit as he recovers from the surgery done last month. The Vice President expressed his appreciation for the visit and the good wishes, and also commended the expertise of the Nigerian doctors and the availability of cutting-edge medical facilities existing in the country. But he regretted that doctors are restrained by regulations to advertise. As a result, many people are unaware of the level of quality medical services available locally. Important national issues were also raised, especially regarding the economy and the ASUU strike. Chairman of the Governors Forum, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, speaks briefly to the press after the meeting.
ASUU in particular, and indeed all stakeholders, let us do what will ensure that we don't miss out. Nigeria is competing with other countries. We do not have the luxury of time, so we'll continue to urge all stakeholders to do the same.
And there are indications that the legislative arm of government is making efforts to achieve final resolution to the prolonged industrial impasse by the Academic Staff Union of Universities. This indication emerged during a visit by the Senate to the Ministry of Education in Abuja.
Whatever we can do, I will appeal to you with the fear of God. I will also tell the university teachers, things are not exactly okay right now. Challenges are global. Get to a point of making these lecturers know that you are offered the optimum.
The House of Representatives says the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation must be proactive for the country to effectively block loopholes used to illegally siphon public resources. This came up during several instances of conflicting figures in relation to remittances between revenue-generating agencies and the Accountant General's office as the House works on Nigeria's financial projections for 2023.
Because sometimes to identify agencies that have made payments. Now, if you look at this, any accountant, you find it difficult which particular agency have made this payment. And that is why each time they make payment, we say, come identify, so I can issue you receipt.
The federal government has unveiled a presidential delivery tracker and website that will enable citizens to monitor and give direct feedback on the quality and progress of government projects and programs in their localities. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, says the online delivery tracker will also be used by the Central Delivery Coordination Unit in his office to monitor the performances of ministries, departments, and agencies of government in public service delivery.
On a weekly basis, I submit a report to Mr. President, and I've started serializing them.
Indebted to NAMA to the tune of 5,735,336 naira as at 30th June 2022.
President Muhammadu Buhari is extending heartfelt condolences to all the families affected by the recent flooding in different states across the country. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, indicates that the President pledges the federal government's willingness to provide the needed emergency assistance to individuals and communities impacted by the disaster. And the President reiterates that these tragic events have brought to fore the need for states and local governments to step up their level of preparedness in handling emergencies, which remains a shared responsibility with the government at the center. The President urges inhabitants of flood-prone areas to always adhere to the early warning advisories as issued by the organizations saddled with climate monitoring and disaster management. That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kirian and Kingsley after this time out. Good morning.
Join us to stop crude oil and product theft at production sites, on the pipeline, at terminals, at the depots, on vessels, at refineries. Help stop crude oil and product theft. Report infringements to www.stopcrudetheft.com. You can also validate genuine purchase at validate.stopcrudetheft.com. Please report and be rewarded. This message is from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your mission. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
When you wake up in the morning, before you start your day, breakfast time is time. For work and for play, for a great start to your day. Breakfast time is Kellogg's time.
We start our day with a nourishing Kellogg's breakfast, powered with the goodness of grains and 11 essential vitamins and minerals. Kellogg's makes a great tasting breakfast for all of us.
Breakfast time is Kellogg's time.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. You are armed with a machete and a gun.
See, I am angry and I can't even contain it. See.
Oh, my guy, calm down, calm down.
See, Oga, I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our own place. They cannot eat their cake and have it now, never.
If you destroy their business here, and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold?
See, what you're saying is correct. But I'm still angry.
The best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity.
My people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now, let's go business and we'll bring you business news.
As government continue to create access to markets for made in Nigerian goods outside the country, private sector players of the view that increased patronage at home will be a great booster.
What we've done is to form a company that seeks to proffer solutions to all of this, which is why we call ourselves a go-to-market, an export go-to-market service and distribution company, so that we can engage the export class, identify where they are on their export journey, and then we intervene. If they need training, we train them. If they need guide with how to package their products, we give them the guide. If they need to move products seamlessly between, for instance, Nigeria and East Africa, we have a partnership that does that very well.
On the Nigerian equities market, investors lost 19 billion naira as market decreased by 0.07%. Mutual Benefits, Fidelity Bank and Access Holdings were top traded stocks as investors in 4,145 deals exchanged 125.9 million shares valued at 3.073 billion naira. The market's all-share index decreased from preceding trading days 49,676.75 points to 49,642.69 points. Market capitalization stood at 26.775 trillion naira.
Thank you very much for the business news package and Good Morning Nigeria. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
It's now time for a review of today's national dailies. And first, I have the Punch newspaper. We'll go to headlines above the name flag of the Punch newspaper. 6,068 Nigerian doctors move to UK under this administration. That's on page 12. Federal government projects 120 trillion naira as 3-year consumption expenditure. That's on page 21. All right, that 46 billion naira debt. NCAA threatens to withdraw airlines licenses. That's on page 22 as well. All right, Tinubu seeks Jonathan's support. APC denies internal rifts. It's on page 13. All right, now the lead story on the Punch newspaper is on the indefinite strike declared by ASUU. Federal government summons varsity councils, vice chancellors as parents grumble. It has 4 riders to that. NUC meets pro-chancellors Tuesday to review actions, reach consensus. Oshibajo, APC governors beg lecturers to end strike. Parents Association says ASUU inconsiderate. Minister insists on no work, no pay. Lecturers deserve pay despite strike, according to ASUU president. Now, the photo story is that of the Nigerian army. Of course, it's titled "Army Kills Terrorists, Arrest 3 Suspects in Kaduna." All right, and below that we have ensure PDP wins in Kaduna, Wike tells McCarthy. It's on page 16. Zamfara orders 7,000 guns for community guards. It's on page 29. That's where we have details of that. 2 die, 7 rescued as canoe capsizes in Jigawa. It's on page 5. Kinsley.
All right, Kieran, thanks a lot. We also have a look at the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint newspaper, below the nameplate, you have the following headlines. Nigeria will stop importing fuel June next year, and that's attributed to Mele Kyari, the CEO of NNPC Limited. Then you have a number of riders, so that headline says Dangote and state-owned refineries to meet nation's fuel needs in 2023. Another rider says laments loss of 9 million barrels in first quarter, and federal government commissions 8 gunboats to combat oil theft. The real story is on politics. Buhari to APC governors and Nigerians. I won't interfere in 2023 elections. Says will replicate Ekiti, Osun and Anambra polls. That's one of the riders. Other riders, no row between Tinubu and Adamu over campaign council. That's attributed to the APC. Let's act fast on economy and ASUU strike, Oshibajo tells governors. We are ready to accept any negotiation to end strike. That's according to APC governors. Niger Varsity Management ASUU differ on resumption. Now, you have a number of headlines there also on the left side of your screen, and that's the first column. And it says, just below the one on newsprint, says, blueprint photographer and AIT reporter arrested in Gombe. Buhari salutes Bishop Kuka at 70. Buhari salutes Bishop Kuka at 70. Federal government begins ranching in 10 frontline communities. We are engaging friendly nations to tackle insecurity, as attributed to Lai Mohammed. Now, other headlines right at the foot of the front page there. Kogi police arrest man for killing and burying friend in own house. And then ban on kaolin importation will yield billions of naira for Nigeria. Ban on kaolin importation will yield billions of naira for Nigeria, and that's attributed to the boss of the Raw Material Research and Development Council. Nigeria's electricity sector loses 15.4 billion naira to multiple grid collapses. That's for the Blueprint newspaper. We also have the Sun.
Yeah, okay. The Sun. Yes. All right. Let's turn to the Sun newspaper. The Sun is quite busy this morning. Let's begin with the headline just on the right-hand side of the name flag. It says that Wike Towns McAfee vows to bring down APC structures in Rivers State. And of course, it has a rider to that who says boosts of delivering democracy dividend. All right, and below the name flag, we have again court refuses KRA's bail application. That's on page 5. Now, the lead story on the Sun newspaper says the governors offer to take over negotiation with ASUU. And of course, there are riders to that. Move to end industrial action as federal government summons pro and vice chancellors. Now, we act fast on economy. Varsity lecturers strike warns Oshibajo. Now, APC governors and the NWC meet over presidential campaign list. It's on page 28. NCAA threatens to grant local airlines over 19 billion naira debt. All right, and below that, kidney donor asks court to set aside order allowing Ekweremadu's on government access to his bio data. Now, frustrated youths only using Obi as a symbol, says McAfee. That's on page 28. That's an interesting story to read. Nigeria in worst phase in history, according to Bishop Kuka. It's on page 20. CBN gives Fidelity Bank nod to acquire Union Bank UK. That's on page 2 of the Sun newspaper. Now, fuel imports end June next year, according to KRA. Southeast, 119 civilian security personnel killed in 3 months, according to a report. All right, Kinsley, that's all about it on the Sun front page this morning. We have a number of, issues to discuss.
A number of issues. So let's, and then we have 2 topics to discuss, but let's quickly take the issues. First, we need to congratulate Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka on turning 70. Yeah. Bishop Kuka, I think some of us will still refer to him as Father Kuka, even though he's not a Lord Bishop in charge of Sokoto Diocese. And for those who know him, it's like he's been around forever. One of Nigeria's leading public intellectuals. And of course, it's interesting how over the decades his voice has been heard on critical national issues, so we wish him the very best, just as the president has also congratulated him on the 70th birthday.
Exactly, and not just locally, but internationally. He has been very consistent, with what he believes in. And of course the intellectual aspect of it is what really is so interesting. He has a grasp for what it takes to make comments on national issues.
No question about that. He earned his doctorate in 1990 from the London School of Oriental and African, that's London London, sorry, let me take it again. The School of Oriental and African Studies, SOAS, of course, that's based in London, and then followed up with his publication of his first book. He was a columnist in a number of newspapers and a contributor also to a number of newspapers. I always enjoyed publishing his articles when I was editor of the Guardian on Sunday. And by the way, I mean, the point that should be made about Bishop Kuka, his interest is in a better Nigeria, a better, prosperous, safe, and secure Nigeria. Exactly. So congratulations to him. We also know, Kirian, just before we leave the issue of birthday celebrations, that Segun Odegbami, mathematical Segun Odegbami, is also 70. One of Nigeria's most honored soccer player, mathematical Segun Odegbami turned 70. And we should also add that both Odegbami and Matthew Hassan Kuka have been regular guests on Good Morning Nigeria. But mathematical Segun Odegbami is the speaker. He hosts Sports Parliament. That's an NTA network program.
Exactly. And it takes my mind back, to the commentaries of Sebastian Ofrom and Ernest Okonkwo, who gave him the name Mathematical Odegbami.
It was Ernest Okonkwo that gave him. But I should also say this. I had the privilege. Of being on the commentary team when Segun Odegbami was still active. He was captain of the Green Eagles at that time. In 1983, Nigeria took on Uganda, that's the Cranes of Uganda. The match took place at Ogbe Stadium in Benin. It ended 1-1. I'm sure Segun Odegbami will remember that match. Congratulations to him. But away from soccer, for which Segun Odegbami is also very well known, and the advocacy that he's had in terms of sports and what to do with sports development, is the fact that Segun Odegbami took it upon himself to clear the path for Chioma Ajunwa. Chioma Ajunwa, the long jumper, the police long jumper, which was then led Chioma Ajunwa to winning the first individual gold medal at the Olympics for Nigeria at the Atlanta Olympics in 1996, Kirian.
Exactly, and of course, such persons would be highly needed, at the upper echelon of sports administration. Absolutely. Okay, just away from that, I'm interested in this story. Fuel imports ends June next year. Kiari, what's going to happen between now and then? Is there any, or is just the hope on the fact that we are expecting to have the automated refinery owned by Dangote to be the supplier of oil in the next future?
Well, it was during the briefing session at the Villa that he made those comments, which have been widely reported. Some of the details are unclear to me. Namely, I thought that what would have been of greater interest would be, where are we with the total rehabilitation of the 4 refineries? Exactly. Where are we? Because earlier this year we were told that by the end of this year those refineries would all be have been taken care of. Max, it will be first quarter of next year. But now it appears that we are now saying middle of next year, which means that we are getting into the second quarter of next year. What is the percentage work done on the rehabilitation of the 2 in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna?
And I'm not sure he made comments on those, because if he had made comments on that, then it would have been necessary for us to now say, okay, at what level are we in terms of revitalizing and, of course, rehabilitating those refineries, at least for 1 or 2 of them to form at optimal capacity. If that happens, at least we're going to be importing a little less.
Absolutely. Dramatic impact on the quantum of refined petroleum products that we import. Another story that is not on the front pages of the papers this morning, because of course it happened late. I'm sure the papers would not take it. Is the passing of one of the world's most renowned leaders, the former leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. He was the architect of Glasnost and Perestroika, which of course ultimately led to the end of the Cold War. The Cold War ended, and unfortunately the Soviet Union also disintegrated. Mikhail Gorbachev was 91 years old, and he was named the man of the decade of the 80s by Time magazine.
In fact, I recall vividly, that during that time, he just told the Russian authorities that he has nothing to do, because when the economy is biting, when people are thinking of how to bring about change in a country where socialism has taken its course for over 70 years. I mean, it was like a wind that blew across the former Soviet Union, and they got disintegrated. Today we have several countries, from that enclave. Yes. And it's now we concluded this conversation.
Yeah, some of the other stories we have the opportunity of taking up going forward. So we're taking a short break now on Good Morning Nigeria. When we return, we'll be dealing with two topics.
Get into this beautiful pasta, chicken soup, juicy looking prawns. Thank you. Icy Fish is here. If you're in Lagos, you need to check out this place. It's beautiful. Oh. I don't want to be on my bowl, but you guys have to see this. Girl, I'm just trying to give you good content.
Get 2 GB data plus 1 hour YouTube free on Airtel Super Binge Plan. Dial *141 *514# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Every morning is an opportunity to take your hustle to the next level. Every morning is one day closer to your mission. So, make every morning count. Cup after cup, morning after morning. Start strong, finish strong. Nescafe.
Join us to stop crude oil and product theft at production sites, on the pipeline, at terminals, at the depots, on vessels, at refineries. Help stop crude oil and product theft. Report infringement to www.stopcrudetheft.com. You can also validate genuine purchase at validate.stopcrudetheft.com. Please report and be rewarded. This message is from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC.
When you wake up in the morning, before you start your day, breakfast time is class time. For work and for play, for a great start to your day, breakfast time is class time.
Always start our day with a nourishing Kellogg's breakfast, powered with the goodness of grains and 11 essential vitamins and minerals. Kellogg's makes a great tasting breakfast for all of us.
Breakfast time is Kellogg's time.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
I dodge Amo. Obi, what exactly are you dodging? COVID now. You are very funny. Is this how you have been dodging every cough and sneeze?
Yes, my guy. The thing don't serious.
Have you taken your COVID-19 vaccine?
Leave that matter for Matthias. I have heard plenty things like...
Beggy, I have taken my complete dose of the vaccine, and as you can see, I am okay.
Why you come still dey wear mask?
To protect everyone from getting the virus. It's good to dey practice the protective measures as the vaccine work now to stop you from dying from the COVID-19 infection.
This your explanation makes sense.
Go and get your COVID-19 vaccine. It is available in most public health centers and some approved private hospitals.
COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Protect yourself and loved one. Take the vaccine. Stay alive. Let us all celebrate safely and responsibly.
Obi the Dodger.
Abejo, I'm going to get vaccinated now.
This message is from the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, NCDC, NPHCDA, and partners.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And just to indicate that, of course, we have viewers not just across the country, but all around the world. And we do receive messages even in the course of the program. As Kira and I were discussing in the newspaper review segment, one of our regulars, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Felix Ogbuadu, sent in a message to say, oh, wow, I also turned 70. That's him. I've turned 70 on the 15th of August. So congratulations to retired AIG Felix Ogbuadu.
It would be good to appreciate him, really, because our regular guest on the show.
Nigeria is also, of course, a lawyer. Congratulations, AIG Felix Ogbuadu. We shall, as the saying goes, wash it. Well, that's a prompt for our first conversation, which is on the indefinite extension of the ASUU strike, now 6 months and more. We'll take excerpts from the first conversation that we had yesterday.
On the part of ASUU and government is ego problem. Ego. You see, government has been running schools and universities. Like you said, the councils are independent. If each university has a governing council and it's independent. Now, ASUU should be open to other means of funding and dealing with the situations that arise in the universities.
In the series of agreements we entered with government to this last one, even a committee was set up specially, to see what are other sources of funding will come up for the government, But what do we see? Instead of government to articulate those sources, they are now plagiarizing them, taking them one by one to service other sectors of the society. We are the thinkers. We have never been acknowledged, and somebody is using our ideas and he's fighting us. That's unjust.
Each party must learn to count their gains, even as they have not achieved the total demands they are looking for. And if you play it back, because I told you before that what we're having, the crisis we have has been there for long, legacy crisis. I think I want to let us know that if there's need for proper reflections, and that reflection will reveal that even though we've not gotten there, the revitalized education sector that ASUU is looking for, there are some progress has been made. It was due to ASUU's struggle that we have TED fund. So we can't even be thinking of what will be the way for funding when we already have one that has come through the struggle of ASUU over the years. We can interrogate that further. Are we not? How effective has been TED fund in funding the university? And I know a lot has been spent by TED fund.
We can only look at different countries with different models, and that will amount to thinking globally. But we still need to act locally. And what acting locally will mean to us will be like going through what the Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, said a couple of days back, reported in the newspaper. There needs to be
University Zaria and Chairman of Congress of University Academics, KONOA, Ahmadu Bello University Zaria. We thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and via Zoom is Yusuf Olaoluwale, SAN. He is Chairman, Committee of Pro-Chancellor of State-Owned Universities, COPSON. It's also a pleasure to have you with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here too.
All right, Leland Senior Advocate, let's begin this conversation with you. Your Zoom connection is crisp at this time. What is the attitude of the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State-Owned Universities to the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities?
Thank you very much. The Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State-Owned Universities undoubtedly is a critical stakeholder in the issue of our university education in this country. With a membership of about over 50 state universities,
it can never be doubted that we are very critical to what goes on in the university system in our country. From the beginning, Hobson are taking a position that strike should be the very last resort when there is disagreement between employers and employees. Number two, intermittent strike actions by unions in the university have impacted negatively on the quality of our education, the quality of our graduates over time. Number three, these strikes have led to a situation where other parts of the world look upon our certificates with some level of suspicions, and justifiably too. Number four, our position is that going forward and for international best practices, we've gotten to a point in our country where unions in the universities should actually negotiate with the councils of the universities, who are their employers. If we can get to that level, most of these strikes will not only abate, they probably fizzle out. And lastly, our position as an organization in the educational sector is that you cannot centrally negotiate conditions of service with your own employers and force your negotiation on parties who are not part of the negotiation. In this instance, ASUU and other unions negotiate with the federal government, who are their own employers, because we have federal universities. Hobson, as a body, was never invited nor told to be part of the negotiation. So you can't then force what you are doing with your own employers on the employers of other people and employees of other people. So these are the issues clearly that we've been calling attention to over time. But like I said, if you don't get to that point where employers have direct negotiations with their employees, we'll just be begging the question.
Let me remain with you for a while. It does appear that the situation is entirely a complex one, considering the fact that there are so many bodies, in our academic structure in the country. We have a Pro-Chancellor Council, we have a Council of Universities, we have the federal government, we have state universities, the federal government-owned universities. But the whole thing is that educational quality in Nigeria generally for the past 20 or 2 decades have been very low. And the reason why ASUU has taken to strike is because government, not just this government, previous administrations have been unable to of course, play ball, if you like, in terms of, leading to agreements that have been reached on a number of occasions. Right. The fact that the state-owned universities may not, be interested in incessant strikes, that is understandable. But the fact that there's a reason for this strike, has there been any time your organization have been able to say, wade into this, perhaps to also bring in an idea of what could be done to ensure that this strike does not continue, and that government does its own bit of the bargain to ensure that the strike does not continue? Because from all indications now, as far as the nation is concerned, our educational sector is nosediving.
Well, I want to thank you for those set of questions. Now, number one, at the very beginning, Hobson, and to let you know that we'll be very proactive, at our 6th biennial conference, which we had at Osho State University about 2 months ago, we got the leadership of ASUU at the national level actively involved. As a matter of fact, the national president of ASUU was at that conference for the 4 days the conference lasted in Oshobo, and he presented the position of his organization to the body. And we were able to come to some level of understanding to a point that national president of ASUU himself agreed that there is peculiarity with state universities, especially having regard to the fact that education is on the concurrent legislative list of our constitution, which means states are entitled to have their universities with their own conditions of service and what goes with it. The same thing with federal, and then the same with the private universities. Now, like I said before, our position had always been, and let me go back a bit to history. Luckily, most of us who are leaders in COPSUN today, who are pro-chancellor of state universities, even most federal universities, we are all products of universities in this country. When we were in the universities in the 70s and early part of 80s, I want to believe that it was not that the universities had everything they wanted. No, lecturers got all the things they needed. But there was commitment and understanding that you can't destroy a system before you say you want to build it. At least education. If you look at the rollback effect of what had happened in all these strikes, it's not only the university system that suffers, the society suffers. There are a lot of Nigerians whose means of livelihood is tied around the existence of the universities in the various communities. Those who sell food, those who undertake transportation of students and staff, and such other services. Now all these things have been, they've been out of job. Their dependents have been put in penury. So if you go to strike every time, apart from other things, the social effect is terrible. Now, all these children who have been out of school for 6 months now, a lot of evil things have been taking place going forward. Prostitution, people getting involved in crime. Because we are told that an idle mind is the workshop for the devil. So we must have, it's a whole lot of consideration we have to have. Yes, the struggle of ASUU has produced some positive things in the past. But the only way to struggle is not by strike. There are so many ways. And like you said in your narrative, if you get all of us together as stakeholders, get to a point where we'll be able to get to some certain agreements that will not be disruptive of what goes on. I don't know in other place, there have been some strikes in the UK recently by train workers and so on and so forth. But people don't declare indefinite strikes. I mean, it's like say, look, we are shutting down everything. Where is the hope for those students? Where is the hope for their parents? Where is the hope for those who depend?
Oh,
well, we've lost him there, but certainly we'll get back to him, when the signal returns. Okay, you wanted something for...
Yeah, Dr. Aminu Ishaku. I'm sure once the, as you said, Kirian, the Skype Zoom connection is restored, we'll get to hear more from Yusuf Ali, senior advocate of Nigeria. Dr. Aminu Ishaku, we had the first part of this conversation yesterday, and I'm sure you listened to some of the excerpts at the beginning of this program. Yours is Konua, and we do know that Konua has been, if you may, struggling to get his footing in the couple of years since it came into existence. We've had some disparaging remarks made by some of the lecturers who are members of ASUU against Konua. But what is Konua's own attitude to this declaration of indefinite, total, and comprehensive strike, which is already 6 months and 2 weeks old?
Thank you very much for having me. Our own attitude towards all this is that of condemnation, outrightly, because this shows the gross insensitivity on the part of the striking lecturers, really, to show that they really concern less on the plight of Nigerian students, on the plight of the general development of education in Nigeria. When you declare a strike for the first time, you are invited to the negotiating table. You go there, you present your case and the other party presents their case, you negotiate. This does not mean that you will not get to a point where you will have some compromise. But the sort of language we hear from ASUU saying this strike is indefinite, is total, is comprehensive, is suffocating. There is a branch of ASUU that actually added that word, suffocating. So we find this really to be something that shouldn't come from the body of intellectuals like ASUU. Now, for us in Konwa, we now need to ventilate the system. And that is why Konwa is actually adding its voice to the entire thing. The system is actually choked up by ASUU's position of always going on strike at the immediate notice. One can say, okay, they will call for warnings, they will do this, they will do that. Yes, all this we know they do. But if you look at it now, the strike has now become like an industry of itself in ASUU. And it has like taken a life of its own. And at times I laugh when I hear that they have something they call strike management committee. So it means their job is just, they are constantly being asked to manage strikes for ASUU, as if strikes needs to be managed or something like that.
So they have a strike management
They
committee?
do have that. They do
Probably
have that.
an informal committee. But
Those are the people that they consult with whenever they need to do that. Instead of them to be talking to the rest of the stakeholders. There are voices of dissent in the Nigerian university system, which Konwa actually represents. So whenever Nigerians hear that ASUU has gone on strike, it is not the wish of every Nigerian lecturer to go on strike. But because the only body representing Nigerian universities at the negotiating table is ASUU, they drag all of us into the strike, whether you like it or not. And the resultant effect of that is that the way we are having this brain drain, the way we are having this exodus of medical doctors, for example, out of the country, many Nigerian university lecturers, particularly young academics, are living in droves out of this country. Not because the system here in Nigeria is not working, but because of strikes. You can imagine, people are leaving the system. People are no longer confident about the system, not because there is nothing in the system that ASUU wants us to believe, that the system is grounded. Our systems in the university are not grounded. If they are grounded, then what will you say of the quality of the graduates we just produced last year? And why did we allow them to graduate? If we know the system is completely grounded, why did we attest to their certification to say that yes, we have taught them and that we believe that they are graduates? The fact is they are graduates because they have met up with the necessary requirements to graduate. So this now tells you that we can manage the system out of this crisis by putting our right thinking caps and thinking differently. And that is what Konwa wants to represent. To say that as a body of intellectuals, we cannot always apply the same simplistic solution to say, no, we are going to strike. That to me is rather simplistic. A thorough academic intellectual would rather dwell more on the complexity of the situation and come up with solutions, and then gradually allow the solutions to sink in the minds of our employers, which is the federal government. But the position now is every federal government, according to ASUU, is not interested in Nigerian students to have quality education.
All
Every
right.
president.
All right. Let me add this, to the question put to you by my colleague. We all know that education is the bedrock of human capital development.
Absolutely.
And the perennial strike by ASUU, some people believe, is a resultant effect of insensitivity of previous governments in this country that did not address the issue of education properly. If you go to a university, some universities, even major ones, you discover that infrastructure is at the point of decay. There are certain basic requirements that are needed in a university to function effectively and efficiently. I am not speaking for ASUU, for instance, but they are making reference to 2009 agreement. How many years between 2009 and now? And nobody has actually, taken up the stance to say, look, let us adjust education. Let's make education kind of an emergency situation, so to speak. When, of course, Obama came to power in the US, there was total failure of infrastructure in America, and some well-known conglomerates, big-time businesses collapsed, especially automobile manufacturing companies in America collapsed. And what did they do? They said, okay, they raised funds to bring them back on stream. So why can't that be done in education? To say, how much are they really talking about? That is so humongous that a nation cannot afford to, bring in this money within a couple of the past 10 years. I believe that if ASUU is met halfway, reasonably halfway, then this thing may not continue. So your corner, it should be part of ASUU, so to speak, because you're all lecturers. What are you bringing to the table to say, look, federal government, see what we have discovered in this university, see how you can address it. Have you been able to provide any solution to that as a body?
Yes, we have drafted quite a number of solutions to all this. And by the way, the 2009 agreement that you made mention about, that agreement is outdated. Many components of that agreement, realistically speaking, are quite outdated. You cannot in 2022.
Please, could you explain further?
Yes. There are many aspects within the 2009 agreements that have now proven to be completely unimplementable.
Like infrastructure development?
No.
Payment of salaries, adequate payment of salaries to remuneration for the lecturers?
All these are relevant and will continue to be quite relevant. But look at it. You negotiate with a past government in 2009 and expected that outcome to be binding. I will not absolve the federal government in this. Federal government actually caused all this.
The government is the
problems.
continuum.
Yes. When you negotiate with a union, you ought to have done a lot to try to actually implement most of the content of that negotiation. But then federal government has failed in that regard immediately. That was in 2009. But subsequent governments, when they came, they made the document. They tried to do what they could, as at that time. Some monies were given. For example now, revitalization funding. What is revitalization? Revitalization means that existing infrastructure, existing systems within the university need to be constantly updated. And where you have dilapidation within the infrastructure, funding needs to be injected into that to develop those systems. Federal government, to be fair to it, has been doing revitalization all these years. TED Fund, for example, the entirety of TED Fund is a revitalization institution. Without funding from TED Fund, there wouldn't have been many of the area of infrastructure that we have now in the university. What other funding out of what TED Fund is currently doing that ASUU is actually looking for? Go and check what they're actually asking for in terms of the revitalization funding, 220 billion annually in tranches to meet up with over $1 trillion over certain years. What is the annual budget of TED Fund that TED Fund do spend in Nigerian universities, including in state universities? It's much more than what the content in that 2009 negotiated agreement actually is. You understand? Now, if they now say, okay, apart from TED fund funding, we now need this government or any other government for that matter to still cough more funding into the universities. The question is this: as a government, I'm not speaking for government at all, I'm a university lecturer, and I would love to see a lot of funding in that place. But as a government, what Corona believes is that we will work with governments to understand government's position when governments say that as a government, I need to provide security. So my basket of budget, I need to allocate money for security, for healthcare, for other things, for infrastructure, not only for education. And in that sense, we will now understand the funding structure, the budgeting structure of the country, and also lobby the National Assembly to still put some more additional funding for education. Not to say, no, we don't bother about every other thing. We only want funding for Nigerian tertiary institutions alone. That to me is not something that is quite realistic.
Dr. Aminu Shakur, thank you very much for the responses that you have given to the questions that we have posed to you, more particularly, Kirian, the role of TED fund in tertiary institutions, more particularly in this case, universities. We often hear very little about what TED fund is doing when ASUU is on strike. In other words, ASUU rarely makes references to the interventions by TED fund. It isn't just in infrastructure. The sponsorship of doctoral students, publications, and a whole lot. But that's a table we have to work with. In terms of infrastructure, we should also not forget, I don't know the extent to which it went. I never had the opportunity of seeing them live. But the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing under Babatunde Raji Fashola also at some point undertook the reconstruction of roads in some federal universities. I remember we had him on Good Morning Nigeria. This was like a couple of years or so ago. And there were concerns as to why the Federal Ministry of Works would take that upon itself to be reconstructing or rehabilitating internal roads within federal universities. But we haven't heard any comment from the beneficiary institutions with regard to that. But let's return to Learned Senior Advocate Yusuf Olaolu Ali. He's still with us, I believe, via Zoom. If the Zoom connection is fine, you see him there on the right side of your screen. I've always wondered, Senior Advocate, in terms of what happens whenever ASUU goes on strike. Now, there is a slogan that injury to one is injury to all. State universities also join in the national strike, what they call national strike. I've asked on Good Morning Nigeria, look, if you say the federal government is owing earned allowances to university lecturers, are state governments also owing earned allowances to their own lecturers? And the basket of issues that ASUU would often raise, how many of the issues in the basket apply to state universities? I know that a few state universities now have said, look, we're getting back to work, and others, of course, have not been part of it, including LASU and a few others. How will state governments, and in this case, pro-chancellors, who are the heads of the governing councils and therefore direct employers of state universities, deal with this issue? Private universities, of course, will not attempt what state universities are doing by saying they are joining the national strike, because straight away services no longer required. What is it that state governments are doing?
Thank you very much for that question. In fact, the point you have made speaks to what is wrong with the system. The whole basket of allowances and all those other allowances were agreements reached between federal government and their employees in the federal universities, acting through ASUU. They were foisted on the state universities. Of course, we've had to be looking for money to pay this. And if you sit down with those who are honest in the academia, they will tell you that the totality of what they call allowances and something is like is an abracadabra of some financial things, of benefits. Some of them, you can actually, in truth, justify them. How do you justify for a lecturer on his own to determine the number of excess load he has done? They tell you, oh, I did extra X. In learning system, it's like asking for overtime and asking the employee to determine the number of hours he has done extra without any supervision whatsoever. So that is part of what is wrong with the system. And allowances, fine. Those who can negotiate it with their employers, best of luck. Now the state universities have been bogged down with, in fact, the allowances is so humongous that it's better don't talk about it. I'm aware, as I'm talking, of a state university that is now looking for about 1 billion naira to pay as an allowances for 2 years or so. Now, these are the kind of money that could have gone to address some of the issues of infrastructure in the universities. Going forward, because I may not have the opportunity again, I want to just say that one of the best ways to address the outstanding issues between our academic people and the universities, number one, let's all agree, and I must be the first to agree as well, that look, we have to do something about the salaries going forward. Especially when a professor earns 400,000, 300,000 or thereabout, I don't think, given the economic dynamics, I don't think that is going to go well. Number two, like in other places, let's have a template. Every 2 years, every 3 years, we agree on the percentage of salaries that will be incremental to assuage the problems of inflation. If you can do that, for example, we say, look, this year, a professor earns 1 million naira. In 2 years' time or 3 years' time, 20% or 15% of that will come on top of the salary without having to sit down again to renegotiate. Everybody would know it. And for me, I also believe that if we can pay commensurate salaries, all these other allowances that are too amorphous should give way. So we now know that, look, a professor earns X, a senior lecturer earns X, lecturer one and X, and after 2 years, there's an increment of X percentage over the salaries. So all these other amorphous claims, which is at the bottom of many of the unusual and intermittent strikes, will come to an end. And to complement what Dr. Abdullahi said, if you look at the whole scheme of TED Fund, people tend to think that TED Fund was federal government money. No. If you look at the law that sets up TED Fund, these monies are money that ordinarily should have gone into the Federation account for distribution by all the tiers of government. So they just mobbed it up with the law. So actually, TED Fund belongs to the federal government, the state government, and the local governments. That's the truth. But we make it to appear as if it's just federal government that is funding. No, it's money that belongs to all the tiers of government in our country, because it's 2.5% of some taxes that ordinarily should have gone into the Federation account for distribution. I think what ASUU should, at whatever level, the kind of thing they should put much energy in is how efficiently, how prudently are we deploying money from TED Fund, from needs assessment, and other such intervention bodies. I think that will be more productive for all of us. Oh, TED Fund is spending X billion. How efficient are we deploying the X billion? And I'm aware also that apart from TED Fund needs assessment,
Thank you, senior advocate. Time is not on our side because I want to bring in Dr. Danu to also talk on some of the issues that you have raised and we have raised from this end. I think funding is the issue here.
Yeah,
that is the underlying factor.
Yes,
that is the issue. And Kinsley and I, on one occasion, had cause to discuss the issue of funding in the universities and what the students pay.
Yes,
in some universities, students pay as less as 30,000. 25,000 naira for tuition fee, while perhaps in states you have over 100 or plus,
Yes.
tuition fees. Could it be possible to raise the bar with respect to what students pay at federal institutions, to say 100,000 naira or little above that, right? And of course, government will not create a buffer, for the students, either through loans or soft loans and what have you. Would that in any way, bring about any, sanity in the sector if government adopts that system to increase, the amount of tuition paid by students in federal institutions? Would that help in any way at all to remedy the situation?
You see, one of the fundamental differences we have with ASUU is this uncompromising nature that they have over the time. That you always hear them saying the sort of privileges they had enjoyed in the 60s and the 70s. Who is talking about that now? This is 2022. And we remember, you can say that in those years, 60s and 70s, what is the total population of Nigerian students? And we just came out from colonization into independence, and then we needed to develop our manpower quickly. So there was all sort of incentives for people to come and study in Nigeria and in overseas. Do we have that kind of privileges now?
Why wouldn't we have it? Because at the time you were talking about, we've not had the oil boom and what have you. But in recent times, we've enjoyed the oil boom. And what has been the problem, really, according to us, is the poor management of national resources. And enough of them are not going to the educational sector, which is very, very, important, because every other person who went to school passed through lecturers or teachers as well.
So Nigerian students will now have to wait until ASUU pressures federal government to manage its resources prudently and channel it into Nigerian universities before they can graduate. You see, ASUU is just complicating the entire thing.
The wealthiest nation on earth,
yes,
is the United States.
Yes.
And students pay fees.
They do.
And the students have to obtain loans.
And I tell you
some
what,
of them to pay their fees. And only recently was there a reprieve by President Biden for a certain threshold.
Go and browse on the website of any foreign university, UK, US, Europe, and now find out what is the actual cost of studying, say, an MBBS program. It's a skyrocket amount, but students here pay a paltry to become really qualified doctors that can be attracted to those countries. It means federal government is still subsidizing education in Nigeria. You understand? So, but if we now sit at the negotiating table with all stakeholders, not minding the fact that it is only ASUU that should be listened to, other dissenting voices too within the university system, students, parents, other stakeholders, and now come to terms with the present reality of life to say, in this post-COVID global economy, is it sensitive for a local union in a developing country like Nigeria to declare strike in the midst of COVID lockdown? When our oil revenue went down, the price of oil itself even went to a negative value. And then you now come to say, okay, in a post-COVID recovery, do we need to actually be realistic on the so-called autonomy of universities that ASUU has been hammering on? Or we need to be autonomous? Their own definition of autonomy is that federal government should allow them to do whatever we want, should allow us to do whatever we want in the university system, but at the same time fund us 100%. Also at the same time subsidize everything for students.
I'm interested in what they say, with us this morning. Instead, we said Professor earns around 300 or 400,000.
That's the truth.
I guess maybe. How much do politicians earn in other times? Does a politician earn more than a professor of a university? The answer is no. That's part of the problem. And someone has raised here, that Nigerian senators, a senator earns more than the president of the US a monthly basis. So when we talk about mismanagement, it doesn't necessarily mean, that the things are not, being put in focus, especially when a project is planned to be achieved. But we're talking about management and prioritizing, because education in the first place, as we all agree globally, that is key to any progress that we record. So now, if previous administrations in Nigeria did not attempt to address the issue of ASUU, it has culminated into what we're trying to explain now. If the past governments had done something, by now we wouldn't be talking about this. That's just part of the problem.
Well, Kirian and Dr. Ishaku and senior advocate, we're having to terminate the conversation at this point because we have a second topic, but there are issues that we will, of course, continue to discuss. And I find your perspectives very interesting, particularly what you have said and what autonomy means and what it should mean. It appears that ASUU is suffering from ideological capture.
Yes.
You have Marxist-Leninist perspective that continue to... It's ideological capture.
Yes.
So that's the way my colleague Kieran is chuckling. To say that, this is what we did. Yes, when we went to universities, I mean, this is not... I earned bursary when I was a student. I also had 2 scholarships. So, but it's not common.
That's the problem.
No, it's not common.
It's not common now. Yeah.
But I am an advocate, and we have discussed this in the past. And say, look, I said this yesterday. Let me repeat it. If there are 1 million students in federal universities, and you asked those 1 million students to pay 100,000 naira per session as tuition, what they will pay per session for 1 million students will amount to 100 billion naira.
And that's a big sum that can make.
So, what is the difficult? We understand that, when you say that, you are talking as if you're an IMF agent. When you say that, you are talking like you're a World Bank agent. So, as I said, it's a continuing conversation. And Yusuf Ali, senior advocate of Nigeria, I want to thank you very much for your perspective. But some of the issues that you have raised are also of concern to us, and we hope that we have opportunity of interrogating those issues. Sometimes our universities, state and federal universities, just look like parastatals.
Exactly.
What is the purpose of universities? Universities are talking, they say a professor is earning 400,000 XYZ. What are other sources of revenue? How many patents, how many trademarks are being research outcomes that are... What is the linkage between universities and industry?
Exactly.
What are the sources of revenue? Other than say government? Are we going to milk this cow to death? All right. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Yusuf Ali, Chairman, Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State Universities, would like to thank you very much for being our guest this morning. Also here in the studios, we'd like to appreciate Dr. Aminu Abdullah Ishaq, who is a senior lecturer in the Department of Geology at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, where he is the chairman of the chapter of the Congress of University Academics. Dr. Ishaku, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be talking African traditional medicine and how to mainstream it into universal health coverage.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
All right, for the past 2 decades, August 31st has been earmarked for African Traditional Medicine Day to honor the integral role of traditional medicine in the health and welfare of generations on the continent. Member states take advantage of the day to throw up conversations and fora around the policies of traditional medicine, cultivation of medical plans, as well as the collaboration with conventional counterparts. And here it is no different as we take a look at the mainstreaming African traditional medicine in universal health coverage. And we have already in the studio at the guests, whom my colleague Kingsley would like to introduce.
All right, thank you very much, Kirian. Of course, we have a regular guest on issues of this nature. She's a pharmacist, Zainab Sharif. She's the director in the Department of Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine in the Federal Ministry of Health. Pharmacist Zainab, glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, everyone. You know, you are the one. I like you introducing me. Don't mind, Kirian.
I hope you are not by any way suggesting to our viewers that I'm a patron of your line of practice.
Sure you are.
Anyway.
If not, you have been converted long time ago.
But of course, I've been interviewing you in the past 10 years.
I know. I'm going to give you Jingo by Loba.
Now you are talking.
Your memory.
All right. Of course, Pharmacist Zainab is also a very well regarded published author on these issues. Here in the studios as well, I'd like to welcome Miriam Mansour Yola, an associate professor of cultural studies at Bayero University in Kano. Yola, we're glad to have you on the program.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, everyone.
All right, so let's begin with, of course, our regular guest, pharmacist Zainab Sharif, African Traditional Medicine Day. Again, as we often try to do when we are discussing traditional, complementary, and alternative medicine, that mindset in the population, whenever you raise the issue of African traditional medicine, the mind sometimes will veer towards jazz, veer towards divination, and all kinds of things, those unwholesome practices that Orthodox medicine, push you away from. So what is the African Traditional Medicine Day all about? Is it about medicine men and native doctors and all of that?
Thank you very much. I would want to allow my colleague, you can see she's a professor in cultures, so she should be able to talk about the cultural, the Jaism, the Buddhism you want to talk about. But let me come to the technical aspect to say that in 2000 in Burkina Faso, the African heads of state met to see how they can be able to promote African traditional medicine, which was now adopted in 2001, Abuja Declaration. They said that there was a need for us to set aside a day, which was approved by WHO, 31st of August every year, to mark the African Traditional Medicine Day. Why was that thought in the resolution? It was because it became necessary, seeing that it is part of our culture. They further saw that 80% of our people in Africa patronize the traditional medicine. And they saw the positive effects of traditional medicine. And more importantly, the treasure in Africa, if you may not know, the biodiversity treasure of medicinal plants, estimated to be about 45,000 medicinal plants. And only 5,000 are used now in traditional medicine. So you can see 40,000 are yet to be exploited. And 25% of these are available for biogenic and genetic resources. Come to Nigeria, we have about 10,000 species of medicinal plants. So the resolution was to look at how do we develop, how do we promote, okay? And furthermore, how do we commercialize? Because people look at only the health services angle. No, we want to look further at the economic benefits of what African traditional medicine hold. And the cultural aspect brings about the issue of intellectual property rights. If you may wish to know that the dancing, which she may talk about, Bori, it should be patented. So when you take it out, it becomes a kind of cultural motivation that you can sell to other parts of the world. I think that is the other aspect that I am not to talk about, because she is an expert in that field. So this day, for the past 20 years, the first decade, 2001 to 2010, after assessing the efforts so far made, they tried to revise and decided to say, let's have another second decade from 2010 to 2020. So we have so far, every year, they set aside themes, and this year's theme is no exception. That is 2 decades of African traditional medicine, achieving universal health coverage. Very apt as we go along. So we need to, what have we achieved in these 20 years in terms of what the WHO strategy document states from 2014 to 2023? Areas of policies, regulations, productions, education, community mobilization, research and development, just to mention a few.
All right. What's also apt, is the fact that the continent, requires to integrate tradu medicine, to the orthodox or the conventional medicine that we know. And I'd like to find out from Associate Professor here with us that since the traditional medicine day was, initiated in 2003, the continent has also seen the implementation of WHO regional strategies on promoting and enhancing the role of traditional medicine in the health care system on the continent. What has been, how has this strategy been effective in terms of integrating tradu medicine? Because I know that till date, I'm not sure that orthodox practitioners have in any way in the process of administering treatment to any patient who will refer such patients to any tradu medicine.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you said, since traditional medicine, for now, the traditional healers have gotten trainings, a lot of trainings from, how do I call it? From Federal Ministry of Health. Training is very important, which a lot of people don't believe that traditional medicine healers are being trained. Training is now very common. We train them, show them how to cultivate, how to treat, how to take care even of the patients. They are being trained, honestly, for now. What is in the process now is training. They are being trained. The traditional healers are being trained. Culture is everything, and traditional medicine is part of culture. Culture is what brings out traditional medicine to the belief of the people. Everything is culture. Everything is culture, and traditional medicine is part of it.
I'd like you to explore further the nexus between culture and traditional medicine. As you said, traditional medicine is an outgrowth of our culture.
Yeah.
It's our culture an impediment to further evolution of traditional medicine, or it could also be exploited as an aid to ramp up the benefits and acceptability of traditional medicine.
Yeah, it's an aid. It aids. Traditional medicine is it's an aid of the culture. The culture. Anyway, let me start from telling you what the culture is all about. I think culture is almost everything, and traditional medicine is part of the culture. In every given society, there are a lot of people, and they have their own norms and values. And norms, the traditional medicine is one of the norms and values of the society. And the people of the society really believe that traditional medicine heals them and give them treatment of some sicknesses that they're suffering from. So the culture, traditional medicine, a little bit.
Because culture, as rightly said,
it forms part of it from one side.
The way of life,
way
of life of the people, as it also affects tradu medicine. I have covered the tradu medicine trade fairs, in the eastern part of the country, where we have tradu medicine practitioners from all parts of the country, right? And my colleague Kinsler was talking about incantations, jazz men and what have you. And when you attend such trade fair, honestly speaking, most of the tradu medicine practitioners I've interviewed, speak about the efficacy of what they are showcasing, and a lot of people are using them, and they are also, testifying that look, it is efficacious and what have you. But the worry there is this: what about I know some of you, especially Zainab here with us, of course, is a pharmacist, and she understands that she has to do standard quality products, measure them properly, exactly, and to ensure that these drugs are properly apportioned in terms of doses and what have you. But in many cases, there are no dosage. It's like, okay, take a shot of this, drink it one afternoon and night, and what have you.
Let me interject
now, because the majority of the practitioners,
yes,
how are you bringing them in to now toe your line of doing quality products, and of course bringing about the dosage and perhaps pass through NAFDAC.
Good. Let me just reiterate the importance of the celebration and the day, because that will answer all you are asking me. I told you the WHO strategy word, which you know, talked about policies and regulations. Do we have policies that will help the traditional medicine? Now, a lot has been achieved in the African continent. Over almost 45 countries have policies. Do they have regulation? Because that will bring about aspect of regulating the practice and also regulating the products. This has been achieved. Then talk about the collaboration between the practitioners. What have we done to the practitioners? Whether you like it or not, these are people with reservoir of knowledge. We have been able to bring them closer so that we can, like she said, the aspect of training them. For us, we have been able to look at them, have a database of them, and understand the areas of their specialization and provided the necessary training. You must know that at primary healthcare level, they play a strategic role. We cannot doubt the fact that these people are not there and they do not play strategic role. In terms of products, you know now, that brings us to NAFDAC. If you know that a lot of products have been listed, the purpose of list products to clinical trials. And because of these 2 decades, Africa has been able to now, let me even tell you, the COVID-19 organics from Madagascar has been listed and is undergoing the 3rd clinical trials supported by WHO. So you can see Madagascar, whether in the crude form or not, they started. Now the product is undergoing clinical trials. And also in other countries, for us, let me come down to Nigeria. There are some of our products now, the WHO was there 3 months ago to look at those products that can go further for clinical trials. So you can see the achievements. So in terms of education town, some universities have started training either the practitioners or students. Degree in herbal medicine, curriculum has been developed, certificate training for those of you that are other medical schools, because already there is now a harmonized curriculum along the Waho region for students, medical students. That means if you are a nurse or you are a pharmacist or you are a medical doctor, there will be modules for you in traditional and herbal medicine specifically. For us scientists, the products, what will be the products, the scientific evidences of the products, to develop these products in the African region, blessed with these medicinal plants, to have raw materials for pharmaceuticals. They are low-hanging fruits, because currently the Western countries are coming to assess your APIs. What we mean by APIs, to be able to harness this your medicinal plant for what we call active pharmaceutical ingredients. But don't throw away the cultural aspect. What is the Osun Festival about? Is it not a culture? People come all over the world to assess that aspect. They generate revenue. Whether the dancing, before giving the concoction, whatever it is, it's the issue of IPRs.
The concoction you mentioned, that is
for the Osun. I'm talking about the cultural aspect.
Because that's concoction, people take the concoction.
Yes, because of their belief.
And they believe it's efficacious.
Yes, for their cultural aspect.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, there are a number of issues on the plate right now, and let's unpack them. The creation of the department of which you are a director.
Yes.
That is traditional
complementary and alternative
medicine.
Yes.
It's a vindication of the implementation of the requirements.
Exactly.
Part of the decade of
African
and you've been a champion of this. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
But you also now talked about the infusion of traditional medicine or herbal medicine into the curriculum. When did this take effect? And you say some universities are also offering courses.
Correct.
Which are the examples of these institutions offering courses in herbal medicine? You have an idea?
Yeah. If you look at even in one of the theme of WHO, it talked about curriculum development in the training of traditional medicine. We developed a draft curriculum as far back as 2013 for these medical schools. That means doctors, pharmacists, which has been approved. And that is why some university, Ife University, University of Lagos, Ilori, even the Center of Excellence in Ondo, they are now having some basic training courses, particularly in herbal medicine. That is the science. But if you look at African studies, they are running the cultural aspect. For the cultural aspect, the two may have benefits. If you look at this, which I'm focused on the scientific aspect, you see that they can now issue certificate. But more importantly, there is a now harmonized curriculum, especially along the 15 member states, for training of students, undergraduate students in BSc herbal medicine. This curriculum already will be finally approved when WAHO meets and approves that.
Let our viewers know WAHO. I know you're talking about
West
ECOWAS,
African Health Organization.
Yes.
West African Health Organization, which has, which we are talking about the ECOWAS sub-region, the 15 member states. So you can see that if there is a harmonized curriculum for BSc in herbal medicine, Nigeria is running, that same curriculum will be done in Ghana, even in the French countries. We have Togo, we have Lomé, etc. Sierra Leone, Liberia. These are part of the member states.
Okay, thank you. In fact, very interesting points you've raised. Training, and I want to. I'm not being convinced, from what you've postulated, that anybody like myself or my colleague can enroll in any institution to study herbal medicine.
Yes.
Now, the cultural aspect.
Not that anybody can enroll. There will be basic admission criteria.
Yeah, that is where I'm going. Because traditionally in the village, or
you look like a native doctor already.
There's no problem. There's no problem about that. As far as I can propose solution, medical solution.
You don't care.
Now, back home, say where I come from, right? We have traditional medicine practitioners who never went to school. And how do they know the plant, the medicinal plants? They didn't study anything. He goes into the bush, uses incantations. He will pick up the plants by himself, bring these plants, give them, prepare them into a concoction, use it, and it works. Right. That is the culture we're talking about. Now, what is the nexus between this kind of culture and what you are preferring at the moment as to the way forward with respect to integrating tribal medicine into the normal, conventional or orthodox medical practice? Those other persons I'm talking about could be more in number, than the elitists like herself here, who is then a elitist tribal medicine practitioner. So what is that nexus?
Most of them is, they inherited it.
Exactly.
It has been inherited.
Right.
Yeah, it's inheritance.
Yes.
So we are trying to bring those things written now to document it.
You are right.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you document these things, maybe when they are gone, it will still be there. But when they die, they go with it. That is where we are documenting it for now.
Now, the documentation you're talking about, when you document and, the person who you are documenting for is an illiterate, he wouldn't be able to read and write, yet he has solutions to what he can do. And then when you're documenting, you don't go to the bush with him to know the plants that he's picking up and stuff like that. So how do you document the plants he's using? He doesn't explain the plants to you. So how are you going about that?
Okay, good. Most of them are enrolling their children in school for now. Most of the traditional herbalists, their children goes to school. Even abroad, they go to study herbal medicine, they go to study pharmacists, doctors. Most of them are educated now. So the children will be able to write, and we are sensitizing them, telling them that this thing, if you die, you go with it. Keep it written, please. Tell somebody so that that person will bring it out. So I think most of them are trying for now. Honestly, they are trying to do that.
Break that barrier of resistance, because
intellectual property rights. That brings me to intellectual property rights.
Some of them just might argue that, look, this is something that is inherent to me. If I give it out, then I will lose my power.
Exactly.
So perhaps they would need some reorientation. But I have a question for Miriam Yola. There are some persons who would argue that Nigeria today is suffering from a cultural meltdown. Cultural values are being eroded. And we're seeing a generation of Nigerians who unfortunately do not believe in anything Nigerian. And of course, if culture is the foundation of a people, the rejection by this generation should be worrisome. How, if you agree with this view, how is this likely to impact on traditional medical practice, and what can be done to ensure that even though we are suffering from vast cultural erosion, that aspect at least remains intact and then can be mainstreamed into universal health coverage?
I don't believe in that. Culture is dynamic, it's not static. It grows with time. Culture, it's alive. It's something that's, it's breathing, it's normal. You take some cultures and mix it with your own culture to bring out something new. You can just leave it like that. It's not static. So if culture is static, you wouldn't have the traditional medicine healers writing things down. That is when it's static. If it's dynamic, then they believe in documenting it. So I don't believe that culture is deteriorating, or I don't believe that, honestly.
No, I think he's talking about values.
Values. Values.
Yeah, because the inherent belief, when you speak to, I'm sure you have regular interaction.
That's what he's saying.
Precisely.
Say, Mom, what am I going to do with this?
Precisely. And you are having persons whose orientation would not appear to conduce to what we are promoting. We talk about the critical aspect related to traditional medicine.
That brings me, I want to tie it to the topic, because COVID-19 is specific now in promoting 2 decades of African medicine. Why? People now saw the need to look inwards, and that brought in the forefront of traditional medicine. Ask how many children were steaming all over during the COVID-19. How many of them were taking those simple remedies, either herbal or ginger? Somebody told me that every time the children would say, Mom, is the water ready for the steaming? That was something that was happening. That brought in the value of traditional medicine. Specifically in these 2 decades, we have seen the value that COVID-19 said we should look inwards to be able to look at that local content. And that your local content for local solutions makes you to look at harnessing your African heritage and your African biodiversity. That is an agenda that is good. And then the Madagascar COVID-19, they use the Artemisia annua, which is the plant now. And now that has brought out the use. And most people now saw that we need to look at our own, either look at our cultural foods, how can they benefit? You can see now values from the family angle. Mothers especially need to look at giving their children their values. But more importantly, I want to bring in the universal health coverage, because that is the crux of this matter. Universal health coverage addresses that everybody, everywhere should have access to healthcare, quality health services without financial hardship.
Whether
Trado on this, because that is why they are saying, how will Trado help to achieve universal? That qualifies traditional medicine. If you harness your traditional medicine, especially improve on it at the basic, and you agree that 80% of the African population, now 80% of the world population, 3 billion, access traditional medicine at the basic healthcare. So why are we deceiving ourselves? What we need to do is to look at how do we improve and implement the Alma Mater Declaration of 1978. At least start integration of traditional medicine at the basic healthcare. Let's say primary healthcare. Let's start that way, which is possible and feasible.
Exactly.
And that is why the practitioners, we call our medicine community medicine, medicine of the people. If you train the practitioners, for now, like you cannot train every one of them. They are not, some are not illiterate. What they are documenting, if you made no Kyrian, they are documenting in their language.
Yes.
Say it in your language. Someday, somewhere, somebody will interpret it. Chinese don't study English.
No.
You know that. There are professors.
Exactly.
They use and document India. Go and see their own documentation. In their language, interpreters are available. When we go for this West African, you have French-speaking countries. There is interpretation. And interpretation is a good business now.
Yeah.
To interpret is a good business.
In fact,
the practitioners can document. We have encouraged them. Nupe document. Hausa document. Igbo, document. Yoruba, document.
I think you have
somebody will interpret.
I think
document.
There used to be very. Popular,
can you see that?
There used to
so
be
it's happening.
There used to be a very popular traditional.
Even honoring him. I'll come back to the award. Yes. The father, the African president of traditional medicine.
He's the Ogirigara.
Yes.
Ogirigara. I've interviewed him several times.
No,
I've had privilege of interviewing him in Enugu several times.
Right.
Now you have successfully linked this culture we're talking about to telemedicine, because this steaming you talked
Very
about,
important.
steaming in my village it's been an old, in fact, for centuries. Steaming is used, especially when you are dealing with a very serious disease and stuff like that. So it works.
Yeah, Kyria. But let's remind our viewers, when COVID-19 broke upon the world, and this is about 2.5 years ago now, 2020, and there were conversations around what to do, how to understand it. We had a program on Good Morning Nigeria. Pharmacist Zainab and some other experts were part of that conversation. And what emerged from that conversation was that part of the requirement for confronting this pandemic at an individual level is to boost your immune system. Until then, well, we don't know, but until then, the WHO had not referenced boosting your immunity as part of the defense mechanism against COVID-19.
You don't want me to talk?
Well said. He has already spoken for you, because of course.
No, he doesn't want to. I want to.
You brought in something that should be new to WHO. As far as the fight against COVID-19 is concerned. Well, new to them, but not new to you. Right now, how do you deal with the number of tribal medicine practitioners who are not controlled or regulated? Because this just
regulation. That will bring me to the council.
I just returned from Enugu a couple of days ago, and the tribal medicine was going on. It's been an annual ritual, So I listened to radio, and everybody was talking about what we can do. One medicine can cure about 10 diseases, and what have you. So how are you doing with
that?
What are you doing with the
We
regulation?
need to have the bill of the Traditional Medicine Council bill passed by the National Assembly. If there is passage, there will be a council, just like we have the Dental and Medical Council, Nursing Council, Pharmacist Council. There will be regulation, but not this. At federal level, we have a council. At states, there are boards. About 13 states in Nigeria, Enugu, Edo, Almighty Lagos. They have boards already established for their traditional medicine practitioners. We have encouraged most states, by the approval of National Council of Health, to have boards. Even at local government, my minister will say, at local government level, there must be committee that will look into the regulatory aspect of Traditional Medicine Council. We have started, but we could do better.
All right.
Do you understand?
That's fine. That regulatory aspect is very
universal health coverage, it's very important. It can easily be achieved. We can be able to look at majority of the people getting access to health.
But a critical element to achieving universal health coverage by integrating traditional medicine relates also to, we didn't seem to get a lot of insight into, are you interviewing traditional medicine practitioners and then gathering, if you like, the intelligence from them and getting somebody to reduce it into writing? If so, in which part of the country is this being done? Is it countrywide? Do you have a committee? And whom are you working with? Are you in liaison with the Federal Ministry of Health? Because there is an intellectual property content to this.
The traditional.
Very quickly.
They have their organizations, which is liaised with. They liaise with Federal Ministry of Health. We have NTA and modern traditional medicine practitioners. They have their own associations. They register under Federal Ministry of Health. So in every language, the three major languages in this country, maybe like my own side, I come from the Hausa side. The Hausas, we interview them in Hausa, we talk to them in Hausa, and try to show them the importance of what they have, the importance of their knowledge, and how good they are, what contribution they make to the society. So we interview them, write it down, we keep it. We have, in the universities, we have a library. Let me still go back, please. You know, I'm a lecturer of culture. In culture, there is traditional medicine course. In that course, we used to have a lot of students, more than 600, because they develop interest in studying traditional medicine. It's part of culture. You know, most of them are not traditional healers. They just want to know what the traditional medicine is all about. And I believe by teaching these students what traditional medicine is all about, when they see somebody trying to say, this is traditional medicine in Hausa, this is cure this, it cure this, it's cure that, they say, they used to ask me in the class, how can we go and enlighten those people?
Okay, madam, we're going to end there because of time. We have to. So at this point, thank you, Zainab Judith Sharif, Director, Department of Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine, Federal Ministry of Health. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, I like both of you.
I understand.
Only that there is no gender sensitive.
No, but you have already.
I know two of you. When you have these two of you, I know these two people. Because they are two of them.
All right. Let's also appreciate Associate Professor Mariam Mansour Yola, Cultural Studies Department of Nigerian Languages. He's, of course, an associate professor from Bayero University, Kano. Thank you also for being here this morning.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. That's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We hope you've enjoyed the program as much as we have done. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kieran. I do have a great day.